righty, welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington, serving entrepreneurs throughout the US and the world. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I am super excited to bring you my new friend, Tim Hyde. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Heather. It's great to be here.
Super happy to have you here. We were just chatting time zones because Tim is in Australia, so it's early morning for him. And tomorrow, apparently, he has a much earlier morning appointment. So we can thank our international online business friends for those appointments that whack our schedules out a little bit.
Right. And of course, we've got daylight savings coming up in, I don't know, another month, which will
Oh
throw
gosh, you guys have that too? Yes, I know. That screws everything up. Well, super happy to have you here, Tim. For those of you that don't know Tim Hyde is a fixer, leading Heap certified partner, and an authority in sales and marketing automation for small businesses. Tim co-founded one of Australia's first social media sites in 1999, predating Facebook by 5 years, and spent much of the 2000s educating people on how to get the most out of the emerging digital marketing landscape. Tim has since moved on to help businesses convert more of the attention they create from their marketing efforts. And since 2014, he has worked with more than 1,000 business owners in 37 countries to help them optimize their sales and marketing strategy with a particular focus on CRM, sales, lifecycle, and marketing automation. Tim, you're the guy. When it comes to marketing and automation, people need to hear what you have to say. So I'm super excited we connected. The real backstory is that Tim and I are in a mastermind together, and I've been in there kind of, I don't know, off and on, but for 2 years, right? It's been COVID, so we can't always be as present as we'd like to be. And that was my experience with this particular group. Is I joined, met a lot of people, and then things tapered off because my kids were not in school, right? And then recently I've connected with a whole group of folks again, and Tim is in that batch. So Tim, I'm super happy that we have connected.
I know it's actually really good. Ironically, I've been in the same group for about the same period, I think.
I thought maybe you were newer. I was like, I don't know how long Tim has been in there.
Well, I think for a lot of people, COVID presented some very interesting challenges, and all our best laid plans suddenly, got
Isn't
disrupted.
that the truth?
And we had to adjust.
Yeah.
We've got these things, and I guess these relationships that if we go back to and develop, they actually become really, profitable and valuable for us. And that's I love about how, we've connected and become really good friends in the process.
Totally. Well, and made new interesting connections for each other, and like all the good things that flow from even a single connection are really interesting to observe, and how quickly that can happen. But yes, I agree. The best laid plans, COVID had a way with many of those. And that mastermind group was the one thing that I thought like, oh, I'm going to kind of drop off of like my other groups because I'm really clear I don't have the time for some of these. Even that one ended up falling to the wayside a little bit. So I get it. I'm so happy that we've connected. And I would love, I'm even like learning new things about you right now, reading your bio, right? You've been in the online marketing world for a bit. Do you want to share with us how you originally even got started in the online marketing space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I did not do very well at school. Ironically, just before we hit record, we were talking about how our school systems in many ways don't support kids, particularly kids with sort of different learning needs. And I was definitely one of those. I was incredibly bored through school. I didn't really want to apply myself. I'm sure my parents pulled their hair out like I am with my son. So just turn up, just follow the bouncy ball, just do the work. But it held no interest for me. My first love, way back from a 6-year-old, was entrepreneurship. And I blame my Uncle Scrooge Golden Books for that, right? If you remember those.
I love it.
I was not interested in school. Went to uni. Didn't really do very well at uni either. I did try to tell my mother once that uni was about experience and getting to know people, not about study. That didn't go down very well. as, as she was paying for it at the time. I did find the following year that I had to pay for my own university studies. And that very quickly said, oh, okay, that's expensive. Anyway, I found myself working in IT after uni. And I think we were seeing this sort of changing landscape, right? You know, I did IT at uni just as sort of the emergence of this new communication, you know, modality that we now call the internet, right? And during the 90s, I was deploying boxes onto people's desktops at work and doing a lot of business analysis sort of stuff. We would write code to sort of interrogate databases and give people information that, you know, they really didn't have easily before to make decisions. And I was looking at all these things, and one of the things that I was noticing that is the yellow pages, right? You know, the old book that kept everyone's, that was the way everyone advertised previously, right?
Yep.
That was coming off the shelf next to the desk, and it was being put under. You remember those big CRT cathode ray tube monitors? It was being put under the monitors to raise them up to what we thought the right ergonomic height was, right? We didn't really know much about ergonomics at that stage, but, you know, it was like everyone was doing it. I'm like, okay. And I remember a mate of mine in the late 90s, or early noughties, he had just spent $35,000 advertising to get the back page, right? The very rear cover
of the yellow pages,
of the yellow pages. And I went from his office where he was talking about how exciting this was, that he'd managed to secure this, you know, this advertising. And then I went to my wife's office, and the first 5 desks I walked past all had the yellow pages face down under the monitor. And I'm going, that was a fantastic advertising spend. But really, my launch into the digital marketing space was a mate of mine who was working in the press gallery at Parliament House here in Australia. So it came to me and a couple of other mates and said, we should do this thing, right? You know, we've been following these forums in the US about, you know, Microsoft and anti-competitive practices and the emergence of Linux as a coding language. Why don't we create one of these for our hometown of Canberra, right? And Canberra is very much like Washington, DC. Right? It's a political town.
Yep.
Most people work for government. So let's do this. We thought, okay, brilliant. That sounds like fun. Right? As you do, we can create this, you know, this environment where people can submit their own content, you know, engage in other people's content, right? You know, start talking to each other, share their opinions about what's going on. And we went off to the computer fair. If you remember computer fairs as well, we used to have those too. We bought $600 in computer parts, stuck them together. Unfortunately, the heat sink didn't fit over where the RAM chips on this motherboard was. So we literally put our first server together with an angle grinder. And just literally whacked some code on this thing, whacked some open source code. A mate of ours coded up a forum software. And we just started writing about stuff that was going on and invited contribution from the community as well. And this was this kind of first time that people could really, I mean, MySpace was the thing, I guess, around then. But it was really the first time that people, one of the first times people could actually really contribute an opinion on just about anything that was important to them.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into it. You know?
Well, I know you think back to the roots of the internet. It's so interesting that, right? Because you and I probably, I'm guessing, had similar timelines in our lives. I remember learning how to type on a typewriter in my typing class, right? And then it was right at the end, like maybe my senior year of high school, I feel like maybe it was junior year because my brother was still home. He got a computer that sat at home on a desk that, you know, I would sometimes go over and like look. I had no idea how to use it. I remember clicking, like grabbing the mouse and moving an icon on the desktop and thinking I'd broke something. I had no idea what the interface was, how to use it. It's just so funny to me to think back to that time. And like our kids now, my daughter could do things before the age of 2, right? That I probably couldn't do in my late 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've seen, you know, over the last 20 years, you know, the rate of technological change and the rate of how we've changed our communication, right, is so massively different, right? Social media, which basically dominates the marketing landscape right now.
Right.
It isn't really much older than 15 years, probably 10 years in reality. You know, as they've changed how they've, you know, as social media has changed how we interact with people, right? Even
Right.
sort of 12, 13 years ago, when sort of LinkedIn started to get into some momentum. I mean, LinkedIn's a 2002 start as a company, but it wasn't until the late noughties that LinkedIn became a platform. And that was where you put your CV.
Yeah.
If you recall, right? If you wanted a job,
Right.
you put your CV on LinkedIn and you were
It was
approached
just
by
like a
recruiters for jobs.
placeholder. Yes.
Yeah, but you know, as a business tool, I think, you know, the last 10 years has been really interesting, both for Facebook, Instagram. Now Twitter obviously is becoming like a, you know, people looking at the sort of chat at, not Twitter, at TikTok as a,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as a business tool. You know, the people are really changing the way they interact and interface with prospects, right? With
Mm-hmm.
audiences. And I still hear to this day, and oh my God, I hate Facebook. You know, I'm going, yeah, but are your customers there? If this is where your
Right.
customers are, this is where you need to be as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when we talk customer life cycles, people, it's not just enough to know where your customers are and where you need to be. We still need to build this depth of relationship in order to have benefit from these platforms. In the same way that you were talking about, you know, the mastermind that we're in, you
Mm-hmm.
can be in a mastermind with the right people, but if you don't build relationships with them, nothing comes of it.
Nothing comes of it. That's right. Well, and I was going to ask you, in your time on various platforms, even in your early work on social media, are there some things that you feel like, some lessons you've learned that have really stayed the same and stayed consistent over time? And then are there some things that have surprised you or you feel like are drastically different than where things started out? I'd be curious in kind of your reflection over time.
Yeah, look, it's hard work. That's one that's
Mm,
definitely the same. It's not an easy thing. You need to work it, like anything you're doing in your marketing.
yeah.
You need to work it. Second one would be that 3% of people will hate you no matter what you do.
Ah, oh, that's such a good one.
Right? And like all statistics, that one's made up on the spot. I don't actually know whether it's 3%.
Do you know what my
But
version of that is? My version of that is, I think it's actually higher than that, 6, 7, 8%. It's actually relatively high if you read about it. Of all people have personality disorders, right? Like you even, because I do a lot of work with my clients around liability and risk, right? So it's about clarity and clarity in our communications, our marketing, our legal contracts, all of these touch points in our business. But it's basically the same result, which is that the way I interpret that is like, you're not for everyone, right? Which you just have to be okay with, but also people are going to cross your path that just from a numbers game, whether it's social media, whether it's inside your database, whether it ends up being a client that you work with, not everybody is for your business, and you do have to have some structure and support in place for that. But it's funny that you say that 3% of people will hate you, so just deal with it.
yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, you might be too white, too black, too brown, too successful, not successful enough, too religious, not religious enough, right? Too tall, too short, too male, too
Oh,
female, too
all the
gender,
things.
right?
Yeah.
But it's not really about you. It's more about where they're coming from. And I think that's
Mm,
a really important lesson we need to learn. Um, you don't have to do it, right? From a social media perspective, I guess you
mm,
don't have to do the social media thing. There's other ways to connect with people.
mm.
But I do think we need to recognize that the fundamentals of marketing a business haven't changed.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is probably a really important takeaway I'd like to leave people with. The fundamentals of marketing haven't changed. So as much as you'll see people on Facebook going, you know, come to my brand new training, one of the best words that marketers use, here's a little inside tip. I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit, is new, right? New sells, right? So when you see new, this is our new technique, our new strategy, our new tactic, our new blah, 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 blah.
Ding,
It's all
ding,
rubbish.
ding.
Ding,
Gets
ding,
people.
ding. There
Yeah.
should be massive warning bells, right?
Right.
Because there's not really that much that is new. The
Mm,
fundamentals of a customer life cycle very much mirror the way that we connect with our significant other in our life. We meet
right.
somebody, we add value to that relationship. We pursue the relationship. It's not up to them to pursue us, right?
Mm,
At some point, that other person is going to tell us whether they're ready or not, right? For my wife, she would stop at jewelry stores all the time and leave the jewelry catalogs around the house.
Hint,
Right?
hint, hint.
Hint, hint, hint. Right? It was up to me to pay attention to this sort of stuff, that she was
Mm.
giving me all the buying signals. Right?
Mm.
We celebrated, our engagement with an onboarding process, which we called an engagement party and a wedding and a honeymoon and then a second honeymoon. Right? And in order to sort of keep the relationship alive for the subsequent 23 years, I had to wake up every single morning and re-win the business.
I love that.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
further lesson, now that I have children, when I ask my kids to do something, they don't do the thing I want them to do the first time.
Isn't that shocking? I know.
Right? I wish. If anyone's got a tip for that, please write in.
It's
We'd
so
love to know.
funny, right? So my son, who I think we could probably share some parallel stories. Same thing. We've had to get all kinds of parenting coaching and support and stuff just around like, how do we parent this child in the way that's the best fit for him? But our second came along, and I remember when she was about 1.5, I asked her to put her little shoes over in the basket by the door. And she looked at me and she picked up her shoes and she went and put them in the basket by the door.
Oh my
I
God.
just about fell over. I was like, what? Like, what is this? This little person listened to me and like did the thing. Anyways, it really was one of those moments like, I can't believe this just happened. And then I also had the thought like, oh, if parents are having kids like this, no wonder they keep having kids.
That's right. This is bliss. This is amazing. Then you have the second one, the third one, and the third one's a monster.
Right, depends which order they come in. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But if we look at our marketing, right, and our business needs oxygen, right?
Yeah.
New customers are the oxygen of our business. They allow us to do everything else. All right. And obviously more sales solves a multitude of sins. That's a really good thing to sort of remember. But if we remember, if we look at, how we build personal relationships, if we don't pursue the relationship doesn't pursue us.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's not their priority to buy our shit.
No, and even if it would be their priority, did they know a little bit more about us? The reality is there's so much competition, not even from our competitors, just so much competition for time and attention in life generally, right? Of course we have to pursue.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so interesting about that is to watch like certain industries not really understand that, especially if they were old school traditional industries where they could just hang up a sign and people would find them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look, the number of advertising channels used to be limited, very, very limited. It was literally either yellow pages, one or two TV channels, maybe radio.
That's right.
And the newspaper in your town, right? But now we've got literally thousands and we're competing for attention, not just locally as well, but we're competing for attention globally. And I think what people miss when they're building it, right? You can either reach more people or you can reach fewer people with deeper relationships. Okay, hopefully more people with deeper relationships. But what we often forget is that we don't. If we look at their own buying behaviors, if we sort of turn the mirror on ourselves, we don't necessarily buy from the best.
No.
Okay? What we do is we buy from companies and people that we like.
Yes. It's such a good point to make. It's and even just the simplicity of that, because people go like, oh, of course that makes sense. But when you actually look at like your own experiences buying, because I think it's easy to bypass that and go like, oh, well, no, logically, like, of course I want the best. I'm a researcher. I'm going to check all the boxes and look at how it meets, but when you actually look at your buying behaviors, I mean, as a recent example, there's a Ford dealership right down the road from me, literally like 1 minute away. I'm in love with the Ford Bronco, right? The Ford Bronco Sport, actually. And the problem is I didn't know that until I went and did some test driving. But just down the road, this is a great dealership. We've had our other Ford, which we inherited from my husband's mom, for quite a time. It's treated us really well. Like, we should want to buy from these folks down the road. But what happened is we went and test drove and they didn't have the exact one that I was looking at. I wanted to drive the model that I really had my eye on. So we went to a different one. But the difference in responsiveness was significant.
So which one do you like more now, right?
Right?
You like the local one?
I'll drive. Interestingly, I thought I would, but no, I'll drive clear around the water to go to the other one, because guess what they did from day one? Responded every single time. Text back, call back, same day, right?
Yeah.
Pure response. But the customer service was through the roof compared to this one right down the hill. And it was an easy decision for me. Like, sorry, you guys should have my business.
So yeah, I think this is a really interesting example, right? You know, the one that's really close to you, it's easier to get to.
Right.
Make your life easy. They sell exactly the same product.
Exactly the
right?
same
But
thing.
the difference is, and we talk customer service being the sort of the reason that the reason, but ultimately you will buy from brands and people that you like, and you'll go out of your way to do it.
This is right. I felt ignored after the first week of trying to get in touch with this first one. I was like, whatever. And then I go and contact this guy, Nima, across the water in truthfully a city or town that we don't live in. Right. But he is Johnny on the spot, getting back to me with smiley faces, immediate texts. And I'm like, of course, I have an immediate affinity to him, right? Like, yeah. You cared enough about me to be responsive, to answer my questions, to go even deeper into like, oh, did you know there's a way to even save on this? Are you a Costco member, right? Like exploring things that I didn't even know that I should be asking. Yeah, they won my business. And and the car's not even in production. And it's like, oh yeah, such an easy choice for me. Totally.
Yeah. Okay. And that's because they've ticked this like box, right? We often think, and I think from a social media perspective, and I think in general all over the place, that we think we just need to out expert each other, right? And it's very difficult to keep trying to out expert the next person. Right? We need to do less of that. People don't necessarily want the best in the world. They just want
can you say that again? We need to do less of that, folks. That was so genius. We really do need to do less of that.
We just need to, we need to be likable and approachable. I've just recently joined a BNI group. So if you don't know, that's Business Networking International, right? You get out there and you do your pitch, your 60-second pitch each week, and and people refer to you. And and everyone sort of gets up, and of course, by the time you get through 30 or 35 members, everyone's like a little bit brain dead and can't remember.
Where's my coffee? Right.
Where's my coffee? And blah, 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 right? Because everyone's like, hi, I'm Tim and I do this and data. And this week I'd like a referral to Bob, etc. Okay. And so this week, like my last week, I, in order to break the network a little bit and seem a little bit out of the ordinary, I sang Adele.
Adele, yes.
Adele.
Oh my gosh.
Very, very badly.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
All right. But immediately it's allowed me to connect my personality with other members of the group. Immediately it's now stood out from everybody else because I'm doing something that has absolutely nothing to do with my expertise.
Okay, which song was it? I just have to ask.
Hello.
Oh, yes. Okay, perfect.
All right. I can't remember.
Awesome. That's all right.
Let's not go there lest we break the internet. But we need to do these things. We need to sort of stand out. We need to do things a little bit differently, right? We need to look at our business from a different perspective, whether it's from a marketing perspective, whether it's from a legal perspective. We need to kind of ultimately look at how do we connect with the right people in a way that's authentic to us. And to be honest, as much as we'd like to say yes to absolutely everyone, right? As entrepreneurs, we often come into it not necessarily thinking of the impact we want to create, but it does become an important thing, right? I know it is for you, Heather, as well, right? We're here to create the impact on the people's lives that we touch, right? But you know what? It's okay to say no.
Yeah, so true. So true. Well, and the thing that I love even about your, the simple reminder of like really showing up, doing it differently, like not out experting the experts, which I totally see all the time, every day online, right? People feeling the need to do that. But this idea of like pursuing the relationship, like all of these things blend together. I even just think of that Ford example, like the way he pursued the relationship was by being super responsive, asking, could he text me, sending me updates, even at odd times where I'm like, whoa, he's still thinking about me, even though I'm sure he wrapped up his workday and was super busy, but knew he needed to follow up to make sure that that communication stayed open, right? I'm not saying people should send texts at all odd hours, just saying he went above and beyond, but also inserted his personality. Like, I love that you did the singing thing. People are going to remember that, and they're going to, that it increases. I feel like all of that increases that like factor, which is so huge.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's the key one, right? You know, think like, how do I get someone to like me? Because, and again, like you wouldn't get married to someone you don't like. Right? Obviously, real issue, and word of caution, don't get out there and put yourself out there for something that you're not competent at.
You don't do that either.
Right? Then you'll end up in all sorts of legal hot water, and you'll definitely need.
Oh my heavens. It ends badly every time. Let's just summarize it that way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so because you're on the inside of a lot of businesses, right? You've worked with people around the world. I'm sure you've seen people doing this poorly and doing it well. Talk to me a little bit about what you love most, because I'm sure you're helping clients kind of fix this system, right? So that they can do more of everything that you've just described, right? Pursue that relationship, be more themselves, right? Develop that like factor. Talk to me about where you're at now and what you're seeing inside of client businesses.
Well, I guess it's an interesting, right? You know, everyone's coming from their same position. It doesn't matter whether you're, you know, an accountant or a plumber or a, you know, auto shop or a
That's right. You
clairvoyant.
work with a super wide variety of clients as
I did
well.
work with a sex worker once. That was interesting, sort of configuring the custom fields in her database. Right? To remember clients' preferences. I think we see also we see a bunch of stuff, and it depends, I guess, where we're coming, where we're coming from, right? That everyone will come up with a different marketing strategy. I was actually connected with a finance broker yesterday, and they've tried SEO and stuff previously. I think from a sales and marketing perspective, we jump far too quickly into tactics. Yes. Without understanding what the strategy or the metrics to see where those tactics are working.
Oh, I was going to assume that this is one of the things that you see is people trying a bunch of different tactics.
Yeah, I've got a client in Sydney at the moment who's designing a new product. They've got, and I won't say what space they're in just to protect them a little bit. They're designing a new product and they're going to launch it on Instagram. And in our first meeting together, I said, well, who's your customer that you're trying to reach? Who's this avatar that buys your product that you're now designing for? And they've gone, oh, I don't know. What do you mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah, now, that's painful.
I guess if you don't know, and you're going panic, right? Because I guess you understand that little bit more about marketing. If we don't understand our customer and who is it that we want to reach, because it's not everybody, and even Facebook have made this mistake, right? I saw a Facebook ad very early on that said there are 1 billion people on Facebook. They could all be your customer. Okay, now that's horrible, because not all of them are your customer.
No, and you don't want them.
You don't want them to be. And look, and for Facebook, as much as people use Facebook, not everyone on Facebook is Facebook's customer. Okay, think about that, because they don't have they have a platform that captures people, right? But ultimately, Facebook's customer are their advertising clients.
That's right, the paying ones.
The paying ones. You're just there to provide an audience for those paying people. Right? They've created that nice thing, right? So that's probably the first thing. Understand who your customer is, and I think really get down to that level of, what is that journey and that I want to take people on, and then start putting in marketing tactics to make sure that those people deliberately and systematically move along that customer journey. Okay. Again, just like we talked about before, the kids don't clean in the bedroom the first time we ask them.
Right.
Okay. Our customers don't buy the first time we ask them, because most customers do not want to have 10 kids with you on your first date. Okay.
So true.
Just like relationships, they will run for the hills.
We're not. Yeah, that's right. We're out of here. Well, and
Right?
even for folks that know who their customer is, they even have some idea of what they want the journey to be. Where do you see them getting tripped up?
Um, look, it's probably sometimes it's either not enough resources put into it or not doing the next step.
Yes.
All right. I often talk in metaphors and sort of pictures, and immediately, as we said, that a picture of a rocket with not enough fuel to get to space came into my head.
Mm,
Right. If you don't put enough fuel in it, it never gets to its destination.
yes. Oh,
Okay.
I think that's
And
so
a
true.
lot of marketing campaigns are like that. We go, oh, I'll just dabble into some, Instagram ads and I'll put in $10 a day just to see. Right. It's not enough to actually make
Not
any
gonna,
sort of ripple in the pond at all over all the other ripples.
yeah.
You need to put a decent amount in to test it. Right. And again, the second thing is once I've sent someone somewhere, right, these guys, this sort of the financial, in the mortgage broking group that I mentioned,
Mm.
they spent, tens of thousands of dollars on SEO to drive people to their website. Fantastic, right? And they're not
Then what
ranking.
happens? Yeah.
All right. And they're going, it's not working. It's not working. And then, a little bit more digging says that their website takes 12 seconds to load.
Oh gosh.
Okay. So you can drive all the traffic in the world to your website, but if it takes 12
People
seconds
are
to load,
not wait. They
people are
think
literally
something's
going to go to the
broken.
next. They're going to
Yeah.
go to the next site. And again, you look at your own behavior. How do you browse? If you're doing a search for something, you'll do a search for your keywords. You'll right click and open 4 or 5 tabs. And then you'll look at them at a glance and go, does this one catch me? Does this one catch me? Does this one catch me? Oh, yeah, here we go. Right.
Yep.
So I have this rule that, there's what I call my 3:30 rule. You have 3 seconds to earn the right for 30 seconds of someone's time.
Right.
Right. That 30 seconds earns you the right for 3 minutes of their time. That 3 minutes of their time earns the right for 30 minutes of their time, and so on. Okay. And that's why you see magazines, at the newsstand as you walk out of the supermarket, quite amazingly sensational, headlines, 6 undiscovered sex secrets that'll have you a partner in,
Like,
an
wow.
orgasm forever. And you're like, oh my God, see more on page 30. And you're like, oh, I better go to page 30. Right. And then, of course, that's the 3 seconds that now gets 30 seconds of, article read.
Right.
Okay. And if that's good, well, you get 3 minutes to then read the rest of the magazine. Right. So, so that's what I was playing with. I think this one of the other things that, and this is, I guess, from more of a legal context, is that almost never will you have a legal contract that covers all of the scenarios that until you encounter them.
No, no. And it's why when somebody shows up and says, oh, I want a bulletproof, writes the name, bulletproof contract.
Doesn't exist.
Right. Well, good luck with that. It's not what I can create for you. Like nobody can. And if they're telling you that they can, like run far away. That's not how contracts work, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, contracts, I think, are largely there for the vast majority of people who are law-abiding citizens and go, this is our agreement and I will abide by it. But really, the reality is if someone doesn't want to abide by it, the value of a contract is only worth the money you're prepared to throw at lawyers to defend it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's why relationships always come first. You have to know who you're in relationship with for that contract to even make sense or be anything that you can rely on. If it's a crappy, it's like in the JV space, right? Joint venture. If you're doing a JV with somebody that you don't trust or you don't like, it's not going to go well. It's just, it's not. And no contract is going to save you from the
Yeah.
problems in that scenario.
I think like everything, legal contracts, marketing contracts, I mean, we all have them, right? You sign them with a customer before you start, but largely it's just around an expectation setting thing. I will do this, you will do that. Are we clear on what these things are?
Yep.
Right? And hopefully later on we won't encounter scenarios that we haven't talked about.
Right. It's one part of a system, right? And that's what I tell people. Legal is one part of a comprehensive system of communication and touch points with your clients, with various people who engage with your business. It's part of the overall structure of support.
Yeah. And look, probably the last lesson, I think this one's a universal one, is that the thing you are doing in your business, nobody has ever done before with the circumstances that you have. Okay. At no point in history today have we got, TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and TV advertising and blah, 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 with you and your set of skills, right? And the team of people that you have around you and the mission that you have, to change your version of the world, whatever that looks like, right? That hasn't existed ever before for anybody.
That's right.
So, own being the pioneer. I think it's okay. All right. It's okay to be a little bit scared of that and go, you know what? Have that imposter system, right?
Yeah.
We've got similarities, absolutely, but
Mhm.
nothing's ever been the same for anybody in your circumstances. And that's okay.
That's
It's
true.
scary and it's exciting. And that's what we crave as entrepreneurs, right?
It's so true. Well, and
the
it's so
opportunity to
interesting.
create.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about that because I think a lot of people, especially if they're trained up in any manner in a certain industry or world, they get really hesitant to kind of like go outside the bounds of what they see other people doing, right? That can really keep people trapped and not applying their unique strengths to their business or to their messaging or to whatever it is that it's in front of them. So I love that. I love that final piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And we used to have this, all the time, in my social media site. We had no real protection to it, right?
Mm.
Anybody at any point in time could start a website and copy us, and plenty of people did. Right? We actually had one person create a site, and somehow they interrogated our database and took out all the moderated comments. They took daily snapshots and then put up all the moderated comments. I thought, okay, we've moderated them because we don't want to end up in lawyers' offices every day as opposed to every 2 weeks. Right? But if you want to do that, go for it.
Right.
Right. But we do these things, because we get to discover, right? If you're the pioneer, you get the roadmap, you get to make it up, you get to sort of look at the horizon and navel gaze and go, where do we want to go with this? And that's entirely your right as the founder of your business. Anyone else who's copying you, well, they're going to fall in all the potholes that you were able to see coming or learn from them because you're more agile. They'll just fall into them and crash.
Yeah,
Right?
copying doesn't go well for people for so many reasons.
Learn from others. Yeah, definitely learn from others, but don't copy them outright.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What piece of what you're doing now, right? Because your own journey has evolved and taken you new places. What part of your work now do you love the most?
Probably it's a bit of a toss up. Two things. One, I love seeing the success we create for our clients. Right? I did have a client last year, and when we started, he described his business as a circus. Okay, it was absolute chaos. It was a circus. It was a revolving door of staff and stuff.
That's
right?
hard.
And we did a lot of work on internal marketing to his team as much as we did to his clients. And within 6 months, he turned around, and I've got a testimonial for it somewhere. From it said, I've fallen in love with my business again.
Oh, goosebumps, right?
I know, actually, I've had a bunch like that. Another guy I'm doing some work with at the moment, when he took over his father's business, his father run a property investment advisory for 40 years and then passed away quite suddenly, and Jack had to come into the business and sort of take it over towards the end. And it was never he's never passionate about it. I didn't want to do it. And, he said, in tears one day, he's like, my dad would be so proud of the work that we're doing, of taking that legacy. And to me, that's really moving, right? Being able to sort of really transform someone's business from a thing that gives them so much stress, right? And it does. Let's be honest, right? Running a business is a stressful enterprise. If you've ever been the night before payroll and going, where's the money for that? It's a stressful thing. But being able to transform that for people where they have this weight off, they re-energize, they can see, that the light of the end of the tunnel is not a train, is a really amazing thing for me.
What do you, the part and the role that you play, what do you wish people knew about your work that they don't, right? Some of what you do is highly technical, right? I think a lot of times people are trapped by not knowing things, right? And not knowing what it takes to accomplish certain things, who the real expert is, what really is going to be a fit for their particular business, etc. I feel like the list is long. But what is there something that you wish people knew about kind of this particular piece of the puzzle that can surprise you at times that people don't?
Look, it's not hard.
Mm,
I think people look at it and think, oh my God, this is overwhelming.
yes.
As adults, we've done a really good job of simplifying our life down into, grand steps. Okay. So if I was to say to you right now, honey, we need some milk. I'm just ducking to the shops to get it, right? We've simplified about 1,000 actions into, just going to the shops to get milk. Right? That involves putting the remote control down, right? Kissing the kid goodbye and daddy, where you going, sort of thing, right? It involves finding your car keys. It involves
Finding your
opening the door.
wallet.
Even something as simply as opening the door involves about 1,000 different mechanical motions in the body, right? When we're sort of looking at systemizing or automating our business isn't intelligent like we are. It hasn't learned how to simplify this stuff down into just do this thing, right? And that's why so many businesses, this transition from having a job to owning a job to owning a business. This is this massive transformation that people want to go through about how we systemize our business. And it's just a series of steps. It does this, then it does this, then it does this, and it does this. And we need to teach our business and our business systems how to do that. That ultimately allows us to be freed up to be the CEO, to be the founder, to be the entrepreneur and do the things that we went into business for in the first place.
So good. Just a series of steps, right? Well, and I mean, those examples, you're right. When you think of it, like even the little day-to-day things, they do take 1,000 little subcomponents to accomplish that one thing, right? We've got this. Everybody, you've got this.
Yeah.
Just a series of steps. You heard it from Tim. Tim, out of respect for your time, where do you like for people to show up online and connect with you?
Couple of different places. If you want to hit me up at winmoreclients.com.au/connect.
Oh my gosh. And I love that name, by the way. When we first connected and you told me your website name, I was like, brilliant. Win more clients. It feels like winning the lottery. Win more clients.
Oh, that's the oxygen, right? So winmoreclients.com.au/connect. If you're on the website, there's also on our resources tab, you'll find a scorecard that we've put together that sort of drills into your customer life cycle. And I know it says marketing, but I want you to think of marketing as more than just the thing we do to attract people, right? It's the whole gambit, right? Right from attraction right through to how do we create raving fans in our business, right? That's the marketing journey that we want to take. And what we've done is we're asking a bunch of questions in that to really look at where you should be focusing your attention, right? To plug the gaps in your customer journey. So if that's a valuable resource for people, jump on that, give it a go.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
We'll put some recommendations on the back of it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get a good score.
Oh, it's so interesting. I feel like these kinds of things like a scorecard are so eye-opening because sometimes you cruise along and you think like, okay, I've got it figured out. Like it was hard to get here, but I'm here and, I think I got some things figured out. And then you go through an expert's analysis of what you have or don't have figured out. Like I always find them so eye-opening. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't even think of that, or I'm doing that thing totally wrong. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, look, and I trust me, I don't score 100% either.
So work in progress, right? All of this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it sounds like an amazing resource. Folks, if you're listening, hop over. We're going to share Tim's website, winmoreclients.com, the link to his scorecard, as well as social media, maybe. Do you like being on social media, Tim?
I am on social media, but you can find all the links on my Connect page. So.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we'll just connect to that on the show notes page, which are at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Such a joy to have you here, Tim. Learn a little bit more about your story and hear from you directly. I know you're an expert in this stuff. You've been doing it since the internet began, which I love. I grew up in the same time. What final takeaway
It's
or
good.
action step would you
It's
like
good
to
to be.
leave people with? Sorry.
Like I was just going to say, it's good to be 26, right?
Oh, totally. Eternally, 26 forever. The funny thing is, so when I was fresh out of law school, I used to get comments all the time about like I looked 14 or something insane, right? I hated it then, but I joke like, yeah, carrying a little extra weight every once in a while when I get carded, or like, oh, you look too young to, to have that many years experience. I'm like, thank you. I love you. I'll totally take it. Yes, it's good to be 26 forever.
That's right. Occasionally when you get, I do remember years ago, I was going into a nightclub, and there was, the photo of the must-have ID to get into the nightclub, right? And of course, there was a 16-year-old girl who really looked 16, and she was getting carded. And then the other photo was a dude, right, clearly in his 50s, right, bald, mustache. Going, yeah, right. Look, the thing that I would leave people with is that, and this is what we see, I guess, in major corporates, right? And whether or not we're going to become a major corporate or not, right? The CEO of your business is you. And if we look at big companies, 80% of their time is focused on sales and marketing efforts.
So
Do
true.
that, and everything else will follow.
You heard it here, 80% of your time on sales and marketing. Tim, thank you. Such a pleasure to have you here on the show. I look forward to doing it again.
Thanks, Heather. Great to catch up.